Howdy, howdy, fellow campers and expedition camper builders and travelers. Thanks for watching my channel and following along. This is Expedition Camper Build video number 29, and I'm going to go into a little bit more on windows and skylights, just a bit of tips and tricks to help you out, but also some other suggestions for not just cutting in windows and skylights and also entry door, whether or not you're using the Motorcraft Adventure Development windows and doors and skylights that I'm using or someone else's. I think these will help for any other installation, and even things that are similar. And so after installing these beautiful windows and being really excited to get that done, like I said before in my video, the two videos about the installation, is that it was a lot of work. It was challenging and it took a lot of things to get to this point. Now, the first starting point is really opening the windows up. These windows were very well packaged. They arrived in great condition and they looked beautiful when pulling them out of the box. I was super excited when I opened up this box with a friend and really excited to get these installed. But there's a lot of things you got to think about before installing these. And I say these or other similar windows, which are going to be probably installed a bit differently, but a lot of things will be very similar.
Hey guys and girls, men and ladies, hello there. It's been messy. A friend just told me today, and I'm going to paraphrase his quote, that sometimes the process is very messy, but as long as you stay with it and you show up, you get it done. And that's basically what this has been about these last few days, or really these last couple of months. So let's talk specifically about the windows. The way I've been doing this is using Sikaflex 252. Sikaflex 252 in white, that is one of the recommended adhesive sealant by Motorcraft Adventure Development. I've been using about 2 tubes for the large windows, a little less, and about a tube and a half for the small windows. You could probably get by with just a tube. A tube is probably more than enough. It's cold right now. That's why I'm wearing a down puffy jacket. That's part of that showing up, even when the going gets tough. And it's been tough. So let's go over what I've done here on the windows, all right, and tell you a little bit more. If you look around here, you'll see there's a lot of mess, and there's a lot of mess in many ways. One, it's a bit of a feat to get each window in. You got your caulk gun, you got your vacuums. This is a cutout with a blue tape, painter's tape around it from that window right up there. These are all my tools I have out and so forth, and the masking tape. You can see how covered everything is in dust. Everything is, even the gloves and stuff. And look at these, they just get completely filthy with this, both the foam and with the fiberglass paneling. And you can see it built up here. This is even after I vacuumed it. So even grabbing the handles of the tools just gets filthy. This was black, and you can see it's just covered in this dust now. I bought a respirator with a face mask. That has definitely helped. You can see even the face mask is highly covered in this dust. It's hard to keep off of everything. Here's the trash can from really one window. Keep the trash can handy because you're going to need that, and you want to be able to just toss that stuff right in there as you're up the ladder working on this stuff. And you can see these are not sealed in yet. I'm going to trim around the edges. So that's in there. It works great. This one's already sealed up. It looks really nice. We had a block around the inside of the window frame because the way these Motorcraft Adventure Development windows are. So one little tip and word of advice is don't expect to get all these done in a couple of days. One, because you would need a lot of clamps. So you can see right there, there's about 10 or so clamps holding that window in. And with all those clamps holding that window in, you got to have 10 clamps holding it in for, let's just say, at least a day. And then meanwhile, you need to be able to have enough clamps to move on to your next window and your next window and so on and so on. You know, I think a day's been enough. I've not seen any movement after a day. So point here that I'm really trying to make is it's a lot of work putting these in. It's messy, it's dusty. And so take care of yourself. Have your tools handy and ready. Make sure you have enough tubes of Sikaflex and stuff all ready to go. The plastic tips cut off, but not yet punctured because they start curing, but make sure they're ready to go. Have batteries for all your tools and stuff always being charged and at the ready. And sometimes, you know, I've been running out of battery power and I have to take a step back. And I've also have invested in some more tools. I've invested in
a 20-volt, 7.5-inch cordless circular saw. That was key to not have to manage a cord. That worked fantastic. And also 7.5-inch circular saw could accommodate roughly a cutting depth of about 2 5/8 inches deep, which was enough to get through these sidewalls in one pass. But also I'll talk a little more about why I chose not to go all the way through all the walls and ceiling. Rear wall and front wall are 3 1/4 inches deep, so even this saw is not enough to go through. But that worked incredibly well, particularly with the fiber cement blade. Also the electric caulk gun that I mentioned worked great, and I also invested in a garage filter or whole garage filter system, which really helped pull out some of those finer dust particles that got embedded out in the garage. And you may ask, why didn't I just do this outside? Well, one is below freezing and snowing, and of course this adhesive sealant needs to be well above freezing or set up. You may also ask, why didn't I use a track saw? Well, pretty challenging to do in these vertical planes, especially with the extrusions and stuff already built up. And how do you clamp those on? And also, why didn't I do a jigsaw? Kind of the same thing. How do you clamp up a good straight edge and really keep it running straight? Also, a jigsaw tends to cut on the downstroke, which means it would tear or abrade, or possibly could, the outside wall as you're cutting through it. So the circle saw worked really well for that.
I've been using also that black thing is a dust collection from DeWalt. It's actually battery run on a 60-volt battery. That saw is run on a 20-volt battery, and they obviously are interconnected. That absolutely helps with collecting the dust. But what I've been doing while it's sawing, but there's still a lot of dust that gets out. So I have somebody else then who is masked up and protected with eye and hearing and breathing protection, also holding this dust collection shop back to the window as it's being cut as well.
And you can see that here in these videos of the cuts, and you can see sometimes also it's in tight spaces and on ladders. So there's a lot of talk and consideration about safety. Make sure you have plenty of ladders in places so you don't always have to be moving the ladders around, and that you have them set up so they're safe for you to use, particularly when you have a saw. In this case, this saw also has an electric brake, which was incredibly helpful to make sure I could stop it immediately. In particular on this back wall, because there are fiberglass extrusions that run through this wall for structural supports, and the saw blade would catch on those and sometimes run in a direction. So I had to be really careful and quick to be able to slow it down and stop it if it did start to run, so I didn't overcut my cuts, which fortunately that did not happen, but still there's a lot of precautions that have to be taken for both safety as well as to make sure you got good clean cuts. You can see the full face shield and respirator that I'm wearing here really was key to keeping things safe, keeping that debris coming on my face, particularly as it's very close to the saw and the debris that's coming out, and particularly with the skylights very close. You can also see the multi-tool here that I also purchased for this project, which was key, particularly in these recess windows where you do have to actually cut a little bit of a recess in, or just to helping kind of loosen up a little section that may have gotten created when you make those cuts. And you can see here I have a friend assisting me with the shop vac on those cuts, and that really helped a lot to keep the dust down, along with this dust collector connected directly to the circular saw. Both those helped tremendously. So one thing you may have to do if you're going to look at installing these and invest in good tools, it really was a good investment to make these cuts not only cleaner and this process a lot cleaner as well and safer. The dust collector that could attach to this circular saw was really key. It was also cordless, a 60-volt battery, ran for an incredibly long time, and drew out a tremendous amount of the dust that was generated by the circular saw. Another big benefit too was to have a second person with a shop vac also helping to draw out the dust that builds up as you're making these cuts, because it's a lot. And I found also I'd upgrade my shop vac to a much better one that sealed well to really be able to capture most of this dust instead of just pulling it to shop vac and then re-spitting it back out into the environment.
The other thing I've been doing too, because it's cold out, is keeping the Sikaflex in the house where it's warm, and so that way it stays viscous, or much more viscous to me down in the garage. So it's insulation temp. It's basically at 70 degrees when I'm installing it. Pull right out of the garage when I'm ready to put it on and go. Use the electric caulk gun because that's way faster than trying to do it manually, and you get a nice clean bead all around. You can control that bead and the rate. So electric caulk gun's essential. I've been using DeWalt tools. Their caulk gun's been fantastic. So just kind of have all this stuff ready. The floor is sticky with all this dust and debris, and I've been doing my best to try to clean it up, but I am a stickler for trying to keep things clean, and it's not been easy to keep this clean at all. So those are some of the things that I've found that have helped as far as tools, protection, safety mechanisms, things like that, to really hopefully help make this as safe and productive and quick and efficient for you while doing this, to make sure you don't cause yourself any harm and get this done as quickly and smooth as you can. Like I said, probably just expect a day per window, and maybe you can knock out two. Got a good helper and you're moving quick and you have all the tools, all the clamps and everything else you need, but make sure you've got everything queued up, ready to go, rubber gloves, all that stuff. Hopefully some helpful tips for you.
So overall, 5 Motorcraft Adventure Development windows were installed, 2 large monsoons and 2 small monsoons. I really like them a lot. I think they're great. Now coming up is even a bigger hole that I have to cut. I have to cut the entry door in so I get in and out of the camper, and that way I can actually button up that rear wall that is still open. So coming up very soon. Thanks for watching and subscribing, and I look forward to sharing more with you on this big Expedition camper build.